And we're live. Hello, everybody. Thank you so very much for joining us on today's Tribe Talk. We have a special guest today, Sophia. And before I tell you all about her wonderful journey, I want to say hello to all of you guys joining us. You'll see that I look a little bit different in the environment where I'm in. Usually I do my webinars in the morning. So it's like in the day, there's cockle-doodle-doos of roosters and lots of sunlight. But right now it's actually 7 p.m. in Bali because we're trying to make sure that Sophia can attend because she's in European time zone. Hi, Tara. Tara was in my retreat this year, which is great. Singapore, still awake. You know, you're still awake there, which is great. And for anyone that I know we had a few emails because usually our webinars are in the evenings for the Americans. They're like, oh my God, it's 4 a.m. for us here. But don't fret. We are going to send a replay to everyone that has registered for this webinar. So at least we have the Europeans here today, which is great because usually the Europeans get to miss out, unfortunately miss out on the talk shows, but they can join here today. So if you are joining us from Crowdcast right now, do say hello in the chat box. Elliot is here. Elliot's in Bali right now, which is great. He knows Hubut and Bali, which are an excellent partner of mine. I love them as well. And I'm glad you're here, Elliot. Thanks for joining us. We have Tara from Singapore. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from Patrick. Where are you from, Patrick? What would be your, is it morning or afternoon or evening for you? So yeah, say hello in the chat box. Tell us your name, where you're from, and what you're excited to learn about in today's Tribe Talk. And we'll make sure to get your questions answered by Sophia and I in the Q&A section of this Tribe Talk. Bucks County, wow, good morning. For all of you who are watching this via our other social media channels, we are sort of broadcasted right now on YouTube, on Facebook as well. Come join us over here. The party is here. And you'll get to be able to interact with us a little bit more efficiently if you come to Crowdcast. So if you're watching this in one of our social media channels, there should be a link either on the post or the comments below the video where you can just click straight into Crowdcast and that will enter you into this room here so that you can ask questions, you can do the polls that we have, and you can start chatting with the people that are here with us on this talk show. And do use the chat box to share your insights. So as we're talking about these amazing conversations today around transition, around what we need to prepare as we go through transition, do share what is your experience going through your own transition, some of your big questions, and even any aha moments that you receive from Sophia's story. It's always really great to share that with other people here because we're all going through the same journey and we don't have to be alone in going through the journey of transition. And of course, if you're here, please help us in Crowdcast to share with a friend. I'm sure you might know someone that might appreciate this talk, might appreciate also gaining some strategies around what they may have to prepare if they're looking to leave the 9-to-5, starting a business of their own. There's a share button, I think it's called invite on the top right-hand corner, where you can share as you please in your social media channels to invite any friends or your community to come join you here as well. And they can, of course, catch the replay when we send it over as well. Now, for you guys that have never joined me here on Crowdcast before, it's a great platform that we can interact together, but we also are able to find out some additional information from you so that we can actually use your feedback to plan out more trainings, more interviews, more talks that we want to bring over to you for free. But all you have to do is let us know what you want. So today's poll will help us to understand what you might be struggling with when it comes to going through your own journey of transition. So the question we have in the poll today is, what's your number one obstacle that you're facing right now when you take your leap? Is it finance and money? Is it judgment from friends and family, belief in yourself or uncertainty about your future? Or is it maintaining an independent business that sustains you? So if you can take a look at that poll, vote on the top answer that sort of springs out to you. That, again, will help us to create content that's going to help you bypass that obstacle. And that's what we're really here for you. So today's Tribe Talk is brought to you by the Academy of Cubicle Crashers, which is our flagship community here at Screw the Cubicle, where we're going to be helping you to transition, to create your transition plan from the 9-to-5, help you create a meaningful business where you do work that matters. So we work with people that are not wanting to escape work. We want to work with people that want to create great work so that work doesn't feel like work, and really be part of an intimate community to help you to create, grow, and launch your business. And if you're interested in in the Academy, which is really my signature program I run all year, we have an intake coming up on July the 1st. And we've already ran the first intake, and you'll meet the people from the first intake, but we're opening the doors again for the Academy July the 1st. So if you click on the green button underneath this video, where it's said Take Your Leap Safely, you will be directed to the Academy page where you can find out how to register, to get on a call with me, to find out if you are a good fit for this community. And then you'll be all prepared to come in when we have our doors open on July the 1st, when we officially start. But today, you are here to learn about how to take your leap safely. And so we will be talking all things about financial preparation, how to gain support from your community, your friends, and your family during your transition, which is so important. A lot of us, myself included, started to do this whole thing by ourselves, and it is not fun. And you can feel very isolated when you're making these big changes in your life. So Sophia and I are going to talk about what that looked like for both of us, and hope to inspire you to actually enroll people in your life, enroll the people that can support you. And so you can actually be much more successful in taking the leap with a great support system. Sophia and I are also going to be talking about the options you may not have thought about when it comes to things like negotiating, consulting work, or contract positions with your current employer, with old bosses, tapping into the community that exists already in your network. We always start looking for new opportunities all the time and never really think about, actually, we've built equity, social equity, with people that we've worked with our friends, with our networks. And that's the place you actually start to develop relationships and actually be able to make an income with the people you already know. We're also going to be discussing how you are going to be dealing with the number one fear people have when they quit their jobs, which is money. So Sophia and I will share, Sophia really will share her journey of how she transitioned from her 9-to-5, what she put in place to make sure that money was not a huge obstacle for her. It's still going to be, obviously what you'll be working on all year, Sophia, but what was it that she had to prepare really to not make that number one fear, the looming monster, right? The looming obstacle that prevents her from quitting. And really importantly, what are those mindset shifts? Because as I said, Sophia is here to talk about that transition journey. And the great thing about having Sophia as an interviewee today is that Sophia just took the leap recently. So it's really great to hear from someone that's sort of like fresh out of the cubicle. A lot of times we look up to people that have been like successfully launched their businesses and are already sort of far ahead. And there's times that actually where you're at, and where Sophia's at is really relevant to the journey you're in. And that can be even more of a meaningful education for you today, because she just literally did that. Things are fresh in her mind. And she too has fears for the future, but being really honest about what that journey looks like so that you can know what to expect as well. And I'm sure we'll talk all about all those mindset shifts that had to happen for Sophia today. So we are joined by Sophia, who's also a tribe member of ours. She's in the Academy of Cubicle Crashers, and I've been so proud to work with her to go from being sort of, I remember the first time I met you, Sophia, you're like, I don't think I can do this, and being super anxious about the entire journey, and then seeing you grow from that place has been amazing to watch. So a little bit about Sophia. Sophia Darkoui is a learning and development specialist based in London. Well, she was based in London. And she's also a leadership and happiness coach for innovative and people-driven brands. So Sophia has had a decade's worth of experience leading and creating sales teams from scratch. She loves to create change management workshops for leadership teams and really producing bespoke learning journeys for major brands that she's worked with in the past, such as Nokia, O2, and Canon. So she quit her job earlier this year in London to pursue a location-independent career. She created freelancing and consulting opportunities for herself while building her business from her beloved new home, which is now Portugal. So thank you so much for joining us. I know it's like early in the morning for you, Sophia, and I love always sharing your story with everyone here in the tribe.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Things are still fresh in your mind, so I'm so glad you're here to share that journey. Because what has it been for January of early this year?
Yeah, so I quit my job on Friday, 12th of January this year. And it was pretty wild, because when I look at from the moment that you and I started working together in November 2016 in one-on-one coaching to then joining the 90-day mastermind end of last year, the last quarter of last year, it's been a very interesting journey. It was I mean, what I always liked about you was your honesty when you asked me back in beginning of 2017, when do you want to leave Canon? And I was like, I want to leave Canon by the summer. I want to be with my now fiance in Sicily. And you're like, yeah, okay, so that's not going to happen. You're going to stay with Canon for another year. And a year looked so long, but that year just flew by. And there were moments in that year where I was ready to give up on my dream. And I always remembered, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And that just kept me going. There were moments where I felt guilty towards my employer because I'm working and at the same time I'm thinking about creating this side hustle. And it's almost like you're feeling guilty for the experience you've acquired over the last 10 years. And now I laugh about it. And then it was like, oh no, I can't do that because this is my job. And then there's this other voice that's all the way in the back saying, yeah, but this is your experience. It's a service that you provide to your employer. And that's something I had to learn through our coaching, through the mastermind group. So it's been quite a ride. And then end of last year, was it October? No, November, I believe. One of my previous contacts, that is also a consultancy agency, they reached out to me and said, hey, Sophia, how are you doing? How's everything going? Da, da, da. I'm like, oh yeah, good. I'm creating my side hustle. So that's when I finally found the courage to talk about it because I was so scared. I said, oh no, I'm not going to talk to anyone about this. And then they said, well, you know what, we're actually looking for someone like you, your profile, and we've got a client here that we are short in consultants, facilitators. So we were thinking about you. So they explained to me what the customer did, what my role would be, and if I would be interested in going through that onboarding process. And I looked at that person, I was like, wow. Really, me? Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I have to think about it. I said, no, I don't have to think about it. I said, some things you need to do on an impulse. I want it. This is great. And I said, and this would be my first into my freedom-based business. I mean, in location independent business, because that was what I needed. Yes, fair enough. I knew that I was going to take that leap, but I kept on postponing those dates. By then. And this really helped me to say, okay, now you've got an opportunity, go for it. Of course, you know, I also had my responsibilities in paying rent, in, you know, paying back credit cards. And I thought that was a blocking issue to me. And then I thought, no, hold on. Let's take a step back. Let's look at how much do I earn? How much do I really need to pay my bills, etc. And what is it that I can put on the side? And this gig would be my great. So what also was very funny is that on the 13th of January of this year was also my last day in the flat in London. So I had a choice. Either I stay another year or I leave. So everything was really coming together while I was so focused on it had to be coaching. It had to be coaching. Then I had another opportunity coming in saying, hey, you know what? This could be your first way out while you're still working on your coaching business. Totally. So I also knew when would be my last payment for my rent. I also knew when I was going to receive the bonus from work. So and to be paid for the first gigs. So I kind of calculated that and I put that in a spreadsheet and I said, okay, that is good. And then I spoke to my fiance, spoke to my sister and my parents. And then they all said, you know what, why don't you come and live here? So all of a sudden I had 3 locations. I had Belgium, Sicily, and Dubai. Right. Come and live here. You don't need to pay rent just to get you started. We really want you to focus on your business. And my fiance also reminded me, he said, but didn't you want to move to Portugal? This would be the great opportunity for us to move in together at first and then to move to Portugal. So my family were extremely supportive and I was really happy. There were moments where they believed more in me than I believed in myself. So I have those days now. But it's very important to just, from the moment that you know, this is what I want to do, And from the moment that everything is clear in your head in terms of finances, then just share it with your family, and they believe in you and they will support you in any way possible. So for me, it was easy to make that move. So I was going back and forth between Belgium and London.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to Sicily about 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
As I moved. We're moving to Portugal next week.
Okay,
so it's
great.
like
you're not in Portugal yet.
Yeah. No, not yet. So next week we're making our move to Portugal, and and then there's the other stuff that comes with it. But it just takes a while to make that plan, and just to realize, to be surrounded with people that just also give you a kick in the ass and saying, okay, what are you doing? This is what you said you were going to do, and make sure you put that money aside, because there will always be a moment where you're like, shit, there's nothing coming in this month. How do I calculate that? How do I work around that? And then all of a sudden you get super creative. So you start working on different projects. In the meantime, I have a new client that worked directly with me, and two. And they're both friends. I didn't think of that. I was like, okay, wait, I've got the consultancy gig, and then now I have 2 friends that come to me and they reach out to me and they want my help. So that's all great. And I think the fact that I stepped out of the 9 to 5 gave me the opportunity to also broaden my horizon and be more open to opportunities, and people asking me, can you help me with this? And I go, I have experience in that. Which boxes can I tick? This and that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, and that's how it happens. So it's, when we say the grass is greener elsewhere, then yeah, but elsewhere is your own garden.
Right.
That's where that grass is green.
Yeah, totally. And I want to talk a little bit about, tapping into what I always call these low-hanging fruit opportunities that are already available to us to leverage. So you mentioned, when you actually started talking about your work to people, that were around you, your friends started to inquire about things, right? That potentially led to them being customers of yours. And then again, talking to your old colleagues, right? About what you're planning to do. And all of a sudden they go, actually, I do have a role for you. And there's this consultancy thing that I think you might be interested in. And that's sort of how it helped you to go forward. And again, not everybody's low-hanging fruit looks exactly the same, but I do believe that there are much better ways to look at what's available to us and leverage that, rather than always creating new opportunities all the time because we think we don't have them available. Now, that's one of the mindset shifts I think that are super important for people to understand, especially when you talked about, not being stubborn in that route of like, it has to be me making my primary income in my coaching business or nothing at all, right? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because coaching was, you were, as a leadership coach, this is a new, even though the stuff you were training on and the things you were coaching on were things that you've done before, but it's in a format of delivery of coaching that was still new to you. And that is something we don't account time for. We sort of are like, I should just jump into that business and money will just appear. But there's like a learning curve, right? On learning how to there's this imposter syndrome that comes into play when you first start coaching people. There's so many of these like pieces that actually take 3 times longer to execute on, probably because you're doing half the time you're spending on second guessing yourself, right? And procrastinating rather than the actual task itself, but, and we don't account for that time. And I think that is such an important message there about your story, is that to be flexible and open to any opportunity to make a living outside of the 9 to 5, as long as it's something that you can do, is people you actually like working with, even if it's not the thing that you set out to do right away in your business, is not a bad thing to say yes to, because that confidence of bringing income in on your own, whatever that gig is going to enhance your confidence in your business too. Did you find that that was helpful to loosen that pressure from like, oh my God, this is the thing that has to make me a ton of money, and let yourself ease into building your coaching business more holistically and organically, and then make your money from something you already truly know how to do really, really well?
Definitely. And having that consultancy gig helped me to ease out into, sorry, I'm hearing myself double. So the consultancy gig really helped me to ease myself out of a cubicle into, I'm working from home, but a lot. And, I'm facilitating workshops. So I'm with people, and then I'm working from home again. So that first quarter was very interesting, but I also knew, when am I going to deliver workshops? When am I going to work with that consultancy agency? And when is the cash flowing in? It then also helped me to, it forced me actually to just put a bit of a pause on the coaching business, because I said, I can't do everything at once, and I just have to learn that. And let's see where the money comes in, focus on that. And with that experience as well, I said, okay, well, now I've got time to work on the coaching with a lot more passion and a lot more love. Yeah. And that's where I find myself in now. And also being part of the ACC community really, really helps. It helps to, you know, bounce off ideas, because going from a 9-to-5 to a kitchen table, you start wherever and whenever you want. You can feel a bit isolated as well. It's great to have the freedom, but then there's the part of, I need to get rid of that 9-to-5 mentality. And that is the hardest bit. It's like, well, your work week doesn't have to be from Monday to Friday. Your weekend doesn't have to be Saturday, Sunday. So that is the mentality to go out of. And, but you really have to be supported by the people closest to you. And if you can invest in being part of a community, that's great, because other people, it's, you know, like sharing ideas. And even that, the investment in yourself at the beginning can look like a cost, but once you know, no, this is actually an investment in my business to go further, then that's another mind shift. I think the financial part is just that mind shift that needs to change of how much do I think I'm going to make each month? Is that enough to cover my bills? Is that enough to put money aside? And what are the things that are going to help me as a person if I invest in my business? Yeah. So those are the two things.
Yeah. When you're responsible for your own earning and potential as well, as you said, you get more creative in how you can make that living, because now there's no salary that comes to you. You know, you have to create those opportunities for yourself. And I think that is a great piece to talk about is like, you know, being able to start actually saying yes to opportunities that are, again, beyond what your potential goal is for your bigger business is a good thing to start with, because at the foundational level of needs, right, we need to pay the bills. If we're not paying the bills and we're not putting food on the table, we don't have a roof over our head, forget about your passion business, because you're not going to have enough energy to think about passion if you can barely survive. Right. Yeah. So that survival, you know, like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs at the baseline is just shelter, food, community, people, you know, that's it. If we don't have those needs being met, forget about creativity, forget about, you know, purpose and all those pieces that are needing to happen from that place of ease. That isn't going to happen when you're starving, right? Or short on change, right? Like that's not a great place to start a passion project. And I think, you know, you're saying yes to a freelance gig, which is not a forever gig, is a great door to open for you, because it allowed you that next step of freedom, right? Yeah. Which is just to leave your job. And I did the same thing, Sophia. I mean, I didn't start off with a business right away. I too transitioned into a consulting gig with my old company. I negotiated, because when I said I was going to quit, you know, they're like, wait, you're in charge of so much. And I was like, well, I'll make you a deal. You know, I will be in charge of half the things I used to be in charge of. I will train up someone new to replace me, but you can have me as a consultant for in a way, cheaper for you, because you don't have to deal with health insurance. You don't have to deal with an office for me. You don't have to deal with travel expenses for me. Like I will actually, you know, work with you as a consultant, and I pay my own way into my own business, you know? So they're getting a fair rate. Why would they say no to that? It allows me to also help them transition without me being there, but still have me you know, as a side sort of part-time consultant into the mix. And there is opportunities there actually that more than about 5 different times I've worked with different clients that have said, no, there's no way that my company would be up for that. And then when they actually like make that request and go, here's what I've been thinking about. Here's how we can help each other out. Here's how we can continue to work together in a different format. Those people actually received that opportunity because they asked. And sometimes, you know, especially if you've been a valuable asset in a company, I think that is a really good card to play, you know, because again, you've built that social equity. and reputation for your work, that if you were to just deliver work differently for them and help them to say yes to that opportunity by thinking about their needs, how this new role can actually really benefit them, and continue to work with you, that you will be surprised at how many times they might actually say, let's consider, let's trial that for 3 months, and that's sort of how I did it as well. It said, let's do it for 3 months, see what happens. If that isn't working for you, we can sort of not do that. But let's see how we can do that. And for the first 3 months of working with them, I really hustled my butt to make sure that they got the great service. I was always, available, and make sure they felt comfortable with me not being in the office in order to do that work. And that, just like you, allowed me some peace of mind financially to work on my business slowly, and actually go through that learning curve without, that pressure of huge financial gains right away from my primary business.
Exactly. And it's good that you mentioned that, because that is also what happened more or less with me. Once I handed in my notice a month before I stopped, so mid-December. Yeah. My then manager at the time, because he was covering for maternity leave, he said, well, why don't you talk to one of the training agencies that we're working with? And I'm like, as a what? Oh, well, why don't, you like facilitating workshops, you like being a bit all over the world. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, and you're good at it, so why don't you contact them? And I said, oh, wow, that's very kind of you. So I said, well, if it's okay for you, then yeah, I'll definitely contact them. And then also the ball went rolling from that end, where they now also asked, well, whether I could be part of a project that I'm doing, well, that agency is doing with Canon. So yeah, so I'm very happy around that as well, because it's also, you want to leave your 9 to 5, at some point you start disliking your employer. And it's very important that you also change that mindset. It's very hard, because at the beginning you're like, love, hate, and then it's like, I want to get out of here as fast as possible. And then in the end you realize that, you know what? You never know what's going to happen. Just leave with exactly. Yeah. That is a very important message. It's a very small world, especially if you're staying in your industry, or even outside that industry. It's just, it's very important that I'm not saying that you have to be best friends with everyone, but just make sure that you leave in a very peaceful way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, people know people in the industry. And again, even if you are not going to be employed there, if you leave on good terms, sometimes they do refer you to other people. They do talk about you in a better light, hopefully, if you're not going to burn that bridge. One of our Tribe Talk guests, Ella Cook, who some of you may have attended that Tribe Talk from, I think, about 3 months ago, did the same thing. She just started last month working part-time for her marketing agency from home, from actually easing them into that conversation, like planting the seed, a few weeks before, instead of going, like she started actually from working, I think, from home a little bit first, like on a Friday. That's like a great way of sort of going, hey, if we work on 1 day a week, maybe in time I can increase that, to a more, sometimes 3 days a week, so you can look at ways to sort of ease your employer into some remote work to trial it. Yeah. And that's sort of a great way to do it as well. Now, Sophia, we've talked about sort of several things around that journey to transition, right? We talked about sort of like looking at freelancing opportunities and not putting all your eggs in one basket in just your only passion project you want to start, by being open, right? Yeah. Any opportunities that can tap into your expertise and use it as a learning ground, to make your own money and actually feel safe enough to invest time and effort into your passion business. We also talked a little bit about financial preparation. I want to dig deeper into that, because I think that's a pretty big topic for a lot of people that are going to usually be really scared to quit because of the financial pressure. But also that was definitely my number one. But I also know that I made that fear up without actually really knowing the facts right away. So I was always like, I can't quit until I make the exact same salary I used to make in corporate. And then I was like, wait a second, like, how much do I really need to live on? And what am I really taking on? Because when I actually looked at the numbers financially, like after taxes, in Canada, we tax 40% tax. I was making a 6-figure income. So 40% of my income goes to, the government. I didn't realize that in a way, because you just sort of go, yeah, whatever. I was someone that like did not have any financial accountability. I used to pay the bills in my online banking, like just covering the total, because I refused to look at what I needed to be responsible for. And that financial mindset brought me into a lot of debt, trust me. And also I was fearful to look at those numbers, which actually hindered me from quitting, because I refused to look at the real numbers and to be able to make real action towards those real numbers. Like after I looked at the real numbers, I figured out after taxes, after dividing what I actually took home with the number of hours I actually spent at work, I was actually making less than my assistant, which was like a shock to me that I didn't realize this, And so here I am going, what is this all for? And I could actually be making more money being a consultant, or doing like my own freelance career, doing even stuff I may not like completely, but can bring in the money, would still be more pleasurable than going into work 60 hours a week, So knowing the real numbers helps you to make better decisions. And I know you've had to do the numbers, right? The spreadsheets, the things that are not sexy and nice to cut down, eating out and stuff like that. So I would love to sort of know when you decided, because it wasn't an overnight decision for you to just go, okay, I quit. Right? There were sort of things that you prepared in order to feel safe to quit. And so what were sort of like your top things that you had to get good with? I'm like betting one of them is your financials, in order to finally go, okay, I prepared enough, my numbers, my this, my that, my home, whatever it is that you had to prepare in order to quit. What were those main top things that you think would apply to most people to consider while they're also wanting to take the leap?
If you've got a credit card to pay off, then it's okay, because I was fortunate enough not to have to pay off student debt, for example, which in the UK, I hear is the same, more or less the same as in the States and in Canada, where they pay huge amounts. And when you start working, you have that debt. I didn't have that, because in Belgium, that doesn't exist. That huge amount of investment in your studies, because Belgium is where I'm originally from. But yeah, I loved my credit card, and I also had those hot flashes whenever I saw what the credit card amount was, and I would go, oh my God, it's hot in here. I remember having this conversation with my sister where I checked my credit card amount. We were on a holiday, and I'm like, she's like, what's wrong? I said, can you turn on the AC? It's really hot in here. She's like, the AC is already turned on. I'm like, oh my God. And she's like, what? I'm like, the credit card figures are not matching. They're just adding up. And I said, oh no, I can't do this. So I was really worried about, how do I pay my credit card? I remember you and I had that conversation, and you said, well, Sophia, you just paid the minimum. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course. Because you just want to get rid of that debt so quickly. Because I thought I could never move out of the UK. I could never move to another country until I started saying, that's not true. Why don't you just talk to your bank? And they were like, yeah, sure, no problem. Just tell us where you live. Huh? Okay. Is that easy? Yeah, just, set up your direct debit, etc. Just make sure that that's there. In terms of going out, and I started looking at what are the monthly subscriptions that I have that I absolutely want to keep, and that I know I'm also going to use in my work. So Spotify would be one of them. I said, I am not letting go of my Spotify account, because that is something that I need. Yeah, I think it's good. I think I need it. And I also use it at work, especially during workshops. I've always used playlists, and if someone's on the call or going to listen to the call that has worked with me, they know that I always turn on the music. What some other things that I was like, I don't really need Netflix, because guess what? Netflix is keeping me from creating my business and doing my work. There were a lot of things that I said, okay, there are things that I can do myself. So I started DIYing myself into manicures, those kind of things. And yeah, I would go out less with friends, invite them over, or just say, you know what? I don't have the money for this. Yeah. Because it's not just paying for that dinner, it's getting there. And you just started adding up things. And because I was living with my sister, I was very fortunate to use her financial brain and say, okay, how do I deal with this? And she said, okay, well, make a spreadsheet. How much do you earn? What are your fixed costs? So I put that there. What are the costs that you can get rid of? And how much do you still have left? And that really helped me. And then knowing that that gig that was offered to me was coming, I knew exactly this is how much I'm going to earn per day that I deliver something. So that can go on my business account. So I opened a business account as well, which I knew that money I wasn't going to touch. And that money would be used for the business. And then eventually now to pay me. And then, so the salaries came in from my previous employer, the bonus came in, and I also had moved out of my flat, which costs a lot of money. Yeah, and you would think that, you would think that moving out is like a piece of cake. No. It costs money to close off your internet, your water, electricity, whatever they think you've still got left to pay. So that's an amount you really need to take into account when you're moving out of a place, whether you're moving from London to Wales or you're moving from London to another country abroad. I was really fortunate to have my parents tell me, come here. Well, they didn't ask me to come. I said, Merry Christmas, by the way, my present to you is I'm moving in for a couple of months. And then my fiance also said, yeah, but now that we're engaged, not that we're super traditional, but it just happened. He said, well, why don't you move in with me? I said, oh yeah, that's true. Why not? And then we just leave together from there to Portugal. So I stayed with my parents for a couple of months. I'm here. So knowing that you have people that believe in you and that can support you and don't ask you, you have to pay the bills, that really helps. So that then you realize that, oh, I do have a pack of money that I can live off for another few months because I am not paying all that responsibility. And I started, and and I know I still have these costs every month, but it's just easier when you have people supporting you.
Yeah, and sometimes those conversations need to be had, right? Like I was living with my ex-boyfriend at the time where I paid half the rent. But then when I started my business, there was a discussion that I needed, and it's something that we would have to negotiate. What could he, how can he support me with the rent while I built the business? Because obviously it's for our life together as well. And those are not easy conversations to have. I know, with Tara here, who's joining us here from Singapore, like she was in our retreat telling us about, I had to move in with my mother too. Same with you, where you just had to like consolidate your life a little bit in order and eat some humble pie sometimes in order to just keep more of that money to invest in your business. That may not be, and again, not everybody has a mother or a spouse that's willing to, or maybe they live alone, that might mean that you get a roommate, that might mean that you cut down costs in some way so that you can, again, release that pressure of paying quite a lot monthly into expenses that can be negotiable, right? Eating out's negotiable, pedicures and manicures are negotiable. And what I really found with debt is that like, I too had a lot of credit card debt when I was transitioning, and I went, oh my God, I have to pay all of it in order for me to get permission to quit. But actually that might not always be the best way to look at it. If you're from the States, you're always in debt, like whether school debt, student loan, you'll never be able to pay all of it off. If you wait for that to happen, you'll just never start a business. But we do have to be responsible with at least paying the minimum, paying what we can towards, making that number go down and not using that credit card anymore, right? And putting it somewhere where you can't find it.
Exactly.
But consolidation can happen. Like for me, it was not just paying the bare minimum, but also going to the bank and going, I need to pay this credit card faster than paying the 21%, right? Interest rate that it comes with. What are my options? And sometimes going to your bank and getting a session with your financial advisor there, which they usually do for free at a bank because you bank with them, there might be other options. So what I did was take out a line of credit, which had a 4% interest rate. Way better than 21%. Yeah. And yes, took out that 10 grand because that's how much credit card debt I had, 10 grand worth of it. And used my line of credit to pay off all my credit card, snip those credit cards in two, you know, and then just paid the line of credit, which then the more I could pay into the line of credit, the more obviously it goes down in debt. But also my interest rates, it wasn't that all my payments were going towards interest rates, right? So there are options, but if you're not a sort of financial person, which I wasn't, go to someone who can help you. Be honest about all your expenses. Be honest about what you bring in and what's going out, and go help me, you know, and that's what financial advisors are for. But we don't tap into them, you know, very often. So that could be quite helpful to consider as well. But I think, you know, the big thing here, as what you talked about, is looking at your life and being able to be honest with yourself. What am I willing to exchange for this new goal? Because, you know, I love going on weekends to Whistler all the time, which costs me like $600-700 each time. It's not cheap there. But what am I now working towards that is going to allow me to exchange that Whistler girls' night out experience, you know, with something bigger that is going to be a long-term goal for myself? Because we have to sort of anticipate that there will be exchanges. I hate calling them sacrifices, because sacrifice is saying like you're giving up something for something you don't want. But right? But if you are building a business, you are investing in the time and money to build that business, it is something you want, because it's going to actually give you more freedom of choice and financial freedom in the future. So you're actually, in that time you invest in yourself is important. And if we keep looking at it as a sacrifice, we're going to look at it as a very negative experience, right? But it's an exchange, right? It's an exchange, because we're not saying we're not going to have any pleasures, but we're going to really consciously pick where we spend our time, who we spend our time with, and what we spend our money on. Because what we do in our life experience, what we do in our day-to-day is either leading us to a life experience we want to have, or it isn't. Right? Is that Whistler trip or Vegas trip with the girls really going to lead me to this bigger life that I really want? Or is it a short-term pleasure? We invest so much in short-term pleasures, we never really invest in long-term joy, you know, which I think is something to always consider. And it's not forever. Yes, you're going to work. I mean, I worked like 3 jobs in my first 9 months of going through transition, because I'm like, I'm going to get out before the end of the year. And so I picked up an old bar job that I used to work in university, you know, which made me an extra $500 a weekend, which is not bad. I put it all in the shoebox, right? Cash in a shoebox. I picked up freelancing gigs with old clients working social media management, which I hated, because I hate social media management, but it's what I knew how to do. And I knew it wasn't permanent. And all that money went into my escape fund so that I could save up, you know, 6 months of living expenses in Vancouver and feel really good about that peace of mind when I did finally quit, and still have that consulting gig, you know, to boot for it. So like, I really felt very safe. And I was someone that needed to have calculated risks. You know, I wasn't a jump off the cliff kind of girl, which I think most of us really are like that as well. Now, in terms of like your enrollment of your family, so you said your family was really supportive. Was it easy to tell them, especially your fiance, because I know you guys don't live in the same city. At one point, I remember hearing a conversation you had in our 90-day mastermind program, that you were like, you know, you wanted to make sure he knew how important this is for you. You know, that you weren't just being foolhardy, or you weren't being irresponsible, or having like a midlife crisis too early. How did you sort of frame those conversations and start those conversations to finally start asking for support? Because I think that wasn't something you were used to. It's like, help me, you know, because you've always been the helper, right? And a lot of us feel that way. How did you sort of, what worked for you in terms of enrolling people to support you in your journey?
Well, I involved my family very early in saying, okay, I'm working with a business transition career coach. I'm giving you a lot of names now, right? Yeah. I'm all of that. So, and she's helping. Yeah, you're all of it, and and so I said so, and she's helping me to understand where my strengths are, and da 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 da. And this is what we're working on. So they were like, okay. But then once they started seeing that I was really allocating my time, and what are you doing this weekend? This weekend I'm working on what? On my business. Da, da, da. So they were like, okay, she's very, she's very serious about that. So my parents are like, they were, you know, wondering, okay, what is it that you're going to do? What is that business going to be? And my fiance as well, because he knew that I was trying to get myself and him to Portugal while I was working with Canon. But, you know, as a big company, there are some things that, you know, there are some things that they can and they cannot do. So I'm like, fine, you know, at least we tried. It's not, you know, it's not going to go through Canon, but I said, I'm not going to wait until I reach the age of retirement to go and live in a sunny place. That is a lot better for my health.
You have the night asthma like me, hence we have our little inhalers very close by.
Exactly. Everywhere we go, our handbag is very sexy. So I started talking to him. I said, look, I've got this opportunity with this consultancy agency, and that could be my first way into freedom. And he was, at that moment, I was so vulnerable that I thought that he was telling me, don't do it. And I'm like, and how on earth do you want me to be? Do you want us to be together? So I felt very attacked and very insecure when he said, no. All I was trying to understand is it safe enough right now to go into that area of the business? Is that an industry that works well? He says, because it's not, I don't know anything of it. So I want you to walk me through those steps and what's going to happen and how many days do you think you're going to be able to work, and et cetera, et cetera. So I started calculating that, and I had to really take a deep breath and just, you know, calm myself down because of those insecurities that I felt. And he says, no, I'm just trying to understand and this and that. So I said, yeah, but I've got all those debts. And him coming from the States, he just looks at debts differently. Because, you know, it's like, yeah, we all have a student loan that we had to pay off. And I'm like, yeah, debts, you're always going to have debts. And I'm like, no, not me. I don't live with debts. And blah, blah. So he never made it sound as if you're in debt and that is totally wrong. It was like, no, you're in debt and that's something, you know, that's life. It's absolutely fine. There's no problem. It shouldn't keep you from living a good life. And it's funny that you mentioned about, you know, involving your family and having this lifestyle that you want to go to, that it's more of an exchange rather than a sacrifice. Because that's a conversation him and I had 2 days ago, where I was back into panic mode around finances. Because even though you take that leap, there will be moments where you're going to start panicking. Yeah. And it's real, but then it's less because you're in the situation and you just push yourself to, okay, I just need to talk to someone right now, and I need to, you know, get out of that box and see what other opportunities there are. And he started summing up 4 things. He said, okay, well, when you were living in London, your rent was super high, but you were living in a box, which is true. I mean, we all know in London, spaces are very small and very expensive. You were suffering, your asthma was just, it was becoming really crazy. He said, well, and he said, just those 2 things, taking you out of it and moving to Portugal, even if you would pay more or less the same, you would have your lifestyle is going to change. You're going to live somewhere where you love, you've got your friends and family, your health is going to improve. You're going to have a bigger place to live in where you can work in as well. And he says, and it's your favorite country in this world. So you've got a lot more wins by having taken that step. And just as you said last week, I think it was in calls, you said, well, whichever gig is providing you money in the beginning, that's the one you have to focus on. And that's also exactly what he said. But being with someone, whether it's your spouse or your best friend, your parents or your sister, to be able to talk about those things and knowing that they will support you and say, stay at mine, don't pay any rent, don't worry about it. I just want you to succeed in your business is super important. And just push yourself into that humble spot of saying, you know what, okay. Because it is true, when you're always the one who's trying to help and to manage things, and I've also lived on my own for many years, that I was like, no, I'm the one who has to pay rent. I'm the one who has to make sure there's money, there's food on the table. And having to split that with my sister was already something amazing. But then 2, accepting that I don't have to do half of that anymore was very hard for me. It was hard not to have to pay rent, whereas at this point we all go, oh, I wish I wouldn't have to pay rent. Well,
there's a reliance.
The culture,
right? If you have a role that you played, especially in a relationship where you have been the one bringing home the bacon, or you have been the one supporting the household financially, it's not an easy conversation to have. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, like, you have to sort of be able to have these conversations freely, because what happens in those conversations is not just about talking about that I want to start a business, but they get to your family and friends get to understand your real why behind you taking that leap. It's not just, again, you're not having just a midlife crisis. You're not just because you hate your boss, or, things that can be sort of changed quickly, by just finding another job or something like that. But you have to be responsible and accountable to why you want to make that leap, because it is not going to be always sugar plums and gumdrops that is awaiting for you. As much as there's a reward, there's also obstacles that you will overcome to get to that reward. And I think we have to be mentally prepared for that. But what is going to allow us to continue to persevere is never about business succeeding, because you're going to fail a lot more times than you're going to succeed in the beginning of time. And for you to be able to keep going, you have to have a real reason of why your quality of life will improve from doing this. It's not just about the business. It's really about what the business means to you on a personal level, whether it's like, I don't want to die not knowing I have a voice to share and a message to share, that's part of my reason. Or as practical as quality of life in London. I hate the rain. It's cold. I don't like jackets, and my asthma's acting up. Like, I just want to breathe again in a place that's sunny most of the year. That is really why I'm still in Bali for 5 years, and I love Canada. I love my quality of life there, but life is just a little bit better on this side of the world. And I love the sunshine myself. It just I'm much more energized when I'm in a warm place than a cold place. I get very lethargic when I'm in somewhere cold and my energy level drops. So that's just, again, my quality of life changes just simply by moving locations at times, So being able to first, I think, know that for yourself first, understand, like, besides profit and besides just, I would be my own boss, why am I really doing this? What's really the motivation that I need to remember that's going to help me to keep my eyes on the prize, even if things get in the way, even if obstacles get in the way. And if you don't understand that on a deep level, when people do question your decisions, when people sort of go, are you sure you want to do that? You've been 10 years in this industry. You might regret that. And you're not like frazzled by that. You're not tipped over by that, because you go, I get that. And that's the old way of thinking that feels secure. But right now, I really want to do this thing where I'm allowed to shine in my own brilliance. This is why it's so meaningful for me. And when you can articulate, then they have a reason also to support you. And again, and parents are always the ones that will always go, are you sure? My mom still thinks like I'm some sort of travel agent online or something. She has no idea. Sometimes half the things I do online, she's like, you're a blogger, travel blogger? And I'm like, not really. And so then, she's still like thinking I'm that. But they don't, the only way they know how to support you is through warning you about things. Like, are you sure? Because this is what they know. It's the truth. That's what they know, is that climbing that corporate ladder, getting the pension plan, that is the secure thing. And that actually is true for their era and their generation. But, and so you can't blame them for going, are you sure? But you're living a different life. And always we have to see, even the critical people that can be naysayers in our journey, they are just projecting their own fears, right? Their fears of what is also the thing they have to tell themselves to not go for it, because that keeps them safe too. So they vocalize it. But you are living a different life. You have different, again, reasons to do it. And we have to hold true to that. But you have to know that first for yourself, right, to get started. Now, before we go into Q&A, I have a last question for you, Sophia. And for everyone that's been listening here on Crowdcast, here's your time to submit a question for Sophia and I that can answer for you at our Q&A session, because we're getting to the end of this Tribe Talk. So there's an Ask a Question tab underneath this video. That's where you can submit your question, and we'll stamp it for you so that you can actually come back into it later on as well. Okay. So my last question for you, Sophia, is since, it's been almost about, 5 months since you sort of took your leap. So it's still very fresh for you. And I think a lot of these lessons are still very fresh for you. What do you think has been sort of the most important, like, habits or rituals or mindset shifts that you have found really necessary to take on really, or, you know, you utilize in order to go from being an employee sort of mindset to being an entrepreneur? What are some of the big changes you've had to do to really think like an entrepreneur going forward?
I had to open up to opportunity. And one of the quotes from Richard Branson that always stays with me is, I don't know if I'm going to quote him right, but it's along those lines, where he says, well, if someone offers a job and you're not sure whether you can do it, just take it. And then, you know, you will make sure that you make it happen. And I was like, yeah, that's true. You know, when I was 6 years old, up until I was 20, standing in front of a crowd was a no-go. The only way that I would do that was if I had my dance rehearsals, and, you know, you're up there for 3-4 minutes, three to four times in an hour and a half, and then you're off. So, but in front of people to deliver workshops during 3 days, no, that was not me.
Yeah.
So I have learned that I had to change the mindset, one, in my field, in terms of delivering workshops, as in prepare. And when you're standing there, don't forget that you're the one who has that knowledge, and you're sharing knowledge instead of being that teacher of this is what you need to listen to. Two was do some things during the day that will challenge you. For me, it was during like heavy workouts. Heavy workouts helped me to, you know, yes, I was living a healthier lifestyle, but it was more about what am I telling myself when it's hard? And I know that sounds very cliche, but it really helps me during the day or the days after in saying, no, I don't want to do this thing, but I have to do it because it's going to help me push. Allocating time in my agenda as well. You know, I have a lot of to-do lists, but structuring my time. As in, okay, today I'm going to focus on that, and I'm going to do the Pomodoro exercises that, you know, you've introduced. Focus. Yes, the sprints. So that really helped, and it's really going away now. Now I'm really in the middle of, I need to let go of my 9 to 5. So I'm very fortunate to have a very direct fiance who says, I don't think you're out of your cubicle yet. In your mind. And I'm like, I'm like, oh my God, shocker. What do you say that? He says, you're fighting not to go in an office, but the office is still in your head. I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. So it's now really working my way to saying, when am I happy? When am I really happy? Because in my mind, I had to work X amount of number of hours per day, and then I'm happy. And it's really making that shift in the one who you need to report into is yourself. And it's having the habit of reflecting, not only in the evening, but during the day, and saying, you know what, today I had a really productive day. Why? Because I did X, Y, and Z. And I'm really happy about that. Good job. Now let's celebrate into doing stuff. So those are the things that as an entrepreneur is learning how to motivate yourself, how to keep going, how to find opportunities, and do take something to write on all the time, because ideas come and then, you know, they're a bit all over the place, but take a notebook and write. That's like that brings you also into that happy place of creating, because I know creativity is like a lot of words, it's all fluff and stuff, but that's literally you're creating stuff. Write all your ideas down and just let go of thinking that you're still working for your ex-employer, because you're not really. No one's there to check on you whether you've logged in at 8 a.m. or at 11 a.m. It's your time, and you're going to learn on how to best manage that time, you know. But for me, I really needed to have those healthy rituals, like waking up in the morning. What do I do first? When do I plan in my workouts? When do I work? When do I take breaks for lunch? When do I switch off from social media? When do I take time to reflect and meditate? So that needed to go in my agenda for it to become a habit. So those were those were those mini rituals that I had to get back into. And learning that the habits that I had when I was working for Canon, I'm saying Canon, they're getting a lot of publicity right now. My previous employer. So it was more about the rituals I had as an employee. They could not all stay the same as being a freelancer, because my weeks are so different. Every day is really different. I think I'm going to work on this today. Yeah, I'm going to make sure I work on that, because why? It's important that I finish this today. But something might pop up and then I'm like, oh shoot, now I have to allocate time for that. So, you know, be flexible with your time, and don't just put things in the calendar so that it looks busy, because that's also overwhelming.
Yeah, I think the great, I mean, there's sort of like great takeaways there. It's like, first of all, I love the idea of documenting what you've achieved, because we sort of tend to not celebrate our wins and give ourselves that pat on the back until we've launched a business, until we've gotten this crazy money that we come in, you know, every month, and it takes a bit of time to get to that point. And we're not celebrating en route there. So sometimes it can feel like you're doing a lot of things, but nothing's coming into fruition as a brand new business owner. But actually, things are having momentum. Things are actually coming into fruition. But if you're not documenting all the efforts you're putting in and actually giving yourself like, hey, I put out my sales page today, or hey, I talked to 3 people about my work today. Like that is progress. You know, it's not just waiting for the money to come in. That is progress. So that part of that motivational piece that we need to infuse into our life is actually acknowledging ourselves when we are doing things in our business that is actually helping us grow in it, right? And not just waiting for the money to come in for it to be the only reason to celebrate, right?
Exactly.
Because the money won't come in if you're not feeling aligned with your business, not feeling like you are indeed doing something for your business, you know? So that is an excellent way to keep journaling your progress and see that even when you end the week not completing everything on your to-do list, you're like, wow, I got quite a lot done, even though I procrastinated some of the days. Let me like acknowledge myself for that, not beat myself up, which is sort of the first point of like, that internal languaging of how you talk to yourself and how you nurture yourself through that change is so important for whether or not you continue or be talked out of it, right? Which is so easy to do in the beginning of a journey. Yeah, that's awesome. And then again, the last thing you said, I think was a great takeaway, which is scheduling in your wellness, right? Scheduling in your you know, your time for yourself and things like fitness, you know, breaks, meditation, all the things that actually feels like secondary, but actually are the primary things you have to schedule ahead of time, because it's going to allow you to go through obstacles and these moments of building a business that can seem really tough a bit more easily, because you're taking care of your body and you've taken care of your mind in order to prepare yourself for the journey ahead, which is really, really awesome. And I know, you know, fitness and wellness is super important for you as well, which is awesome. All right. Well, let's go into a quick Q&A before we end this Tribe Talk. There's 2 questions for you, Sophia, so far. And if you guys are watching this and on the live crowdcast, please submit your question via the Ask a Question tab. Or you can also always, when we email the replay to you after, if you just send us the question by replying to that email, we can always send it to Sophia as well, where she I'm sure will happy to give you a short answer since we can't obviously see it, answer it on the replay. But the question that comes from Danny is, Sophia, after tendering your resignation, were or are there days when you go, I regret screwing the cubicle because of fear and uncertainty? Or does that feel like the best decision that has no room for regret? If there are days when the fear or regret monster creeps in, how do you manage it? And what are some helpful tips you can share with us?
You know, thanks for that question, Danny. When I announced at work that I was quitting my job, there was one colleague that I spoke to, and she looked at me and she said that you took that decision, and 6 months from now, I promise you, you will think, why did I not do this any sooner? And that's exactly where I am. Every day, every week, I think of her and that sentence that she left me with, and it's true. It's true. I don't regret it. Do I think, ah, shit, I wish I had that amount of money every month in my bank account? Yeah, sure. I wish I had, but I know I will, and I know I'll do more because that's what I believe in. And it's really when those moments happen, I'm like, no, I will earn my money and I will earn whatever money I need to because I want to buy a house. I want to buy my car. I want to spoil my family members. You know, and those things keep me going. My real why is because I like spoiling the people that I love. So I'm like, I know that I am getting there every day, and I'm far happier waking up every morning knowing that I have an agenda and I can be as flexible around it as I want to, rather than feeling like I was a bit of a rotten apple in the end, because I wasn't the ray of sunshine that I used to be in the last, let's say, 4 months at work or even longer. And I'm happy that I can have the relationship with some of my previous colleagues now than I used to have. So I feel that me as a person, I've improved. I'm much better. I'm much happier. And when it comes to the financial part, that would be the only part that I say, oh, I have that. I wish I was but you know, I know that I'm doing everything every day to get to that salary and more, because I know why I'm doing these things, and it's more to share.
I think a key thing there is actually thinking about, you know, when the fear comes, you're thinking beyond yourself. When you talk about spoiling your family, it's like, actually, I'm not just doing it for myself. I'm doing it for people I love, you know, and sometimes that is a great motivation factor. I talk to mothers all the time. Sometimes I will go, my God, my days are like so crazy because I'm trying to have a business and raise kids. But actually, the kids are the reason. And I hold on to that reason because it's beyond myself. You know, and when the reason is beyond yourself, there's more, you know, there's more reason to continue and actually be courageous, right? As Danny said, you're doing all the things that many aren't willing to do in order to live the life they want for the future, right?
Thank you.
And it's, you know, it's really true. You know, that act of bravery is for yourself, but also there's a ripple effect. You know, when you're happy, when you're in a life that you want to be creating, you too are a better person to other people. You know, you too can spoil, as you say, other people in your life. That then all of a sudden that motivation factor and that energy that you require to continue despite the fear can be a lot higher, right, for you to hold on to. Now, when those sort of fear-mongering monsters come and they sort of go, Sophia, you'll never make the same money, you know, that you used to make, and any of those fear-critical, you know, things that can happen to your brain, what are sort of the things that you then try to, like, how do you deal with that? Do you talk to a friend? Do you have your fiance to talk to? Like, do you go and write 100 things of why you actually can do that? Like, what is your ritual on like making that mongering fear monster pipe down a little bit?
It's funny that you asked that, you and Danny, because this week I've signed up to this free challenge, and a couple of days ago we had little negative voice in our head, and I called him Rufus. So I have been swearing at Rufus. Sorry if anyone's name is Rufus, it's only because it used to be a character on Gossip Girl. And and I really didn't. So Rufus would be the one complaining and would be scared of anything and would just pop up at the most random moments, where what I do is I just let him talk, and I'm like, okay, are you done now? Because it's whatever negativity is in my mind right now, just I really want to extract it and focus on why I'm doing this. Why would I want a negative outcome for myself? Give me one good reason why I would want a negative outcome for myself, Rufus. And then Rufus shuts up. So Rufus stops talking. And it's really all constantly thinking about what are the gains in my life right now that are so much more than what I didn't have before. I'm not saying that working in a cubicle is a prison, not at all, because you always need people working in a cubicle or just in an office, and they can be super happy and they found their
people
why.
like it. Yeah,
exactly. And, you know, then there's people like us that are like, no, you know what, I want to be able to do something bigger and to be able to reach out to a lot more people everywhere and just help them coming from that part. It's really, when the Rufus comes back, it's like, shh, just shut up.
But also you're negotiating with Rufus. You're not just saying, shut up. You're also saying, here, I want you to remember why I'm doing this. And actually you can quiet down because here's the bigger reason, you know? And again, whenever we're in fear, we sort of only see the fear as the only thing that's happening. When actually in reality, there's all these other things happening too, if you choose to switch that lens of focus, right? It's
and
like,
having someone to talk to as well.
Totally. I think it's so important to be able to have these conversations. If you don't have that community, find that community of people, right? Because when you know that you're, you know, when people can validate to you that what you're doing is amazing and that it, you know, don't think you're nuts for wanting to do those things, you will feel a much bigger confidence in being supported in that journey for sure.
Yeah, and you know, just to come back to, are there people that I talk to? Yes, definitely. I mean, to my parents, my sister, and my fiance, they know when I'm like, when Rufus takes over. So they're like, what the hell is wrong with you? What's your problem? Something going wrong? And then we talk. So it's really important that you don't need to have like you know, 100 people to talk to, but just the people that know you well enough. And then there's also the ACC community, you know. That is very important.
People to come to the academy. I mean, they will see Sophia. You will see her a lot more. But yeah, I mean, I think the idea of community is so important because again, we are the biggest critic, if anything, of all. You know, you can talk about your mother being the biggest critic, but actually, the biggest one is always you. You know, and if you aren't able to, you know, deal with that relationship first, it's really hard to actually deal with other naysayers externally. And I think that's so important to, when you aren't able to pick yourself back up, when you are talking yourself out of things, it's not even going to, don't even try to mentor yourself because you're not in that space sometimes. So we have to outsource that to someone else, you know, whether it's the academy, whether it's like your best friend, whether it's another woman, you know, that's doing a similar thing than you, you know, starting a business. Go with the people, talk to the people that get you, and not the people that are not going to be in the same alignment of an approach in life, you know, and your values. I think that's super important. Thanks for that, Sophia. Quick last question, and this was submitted by Vika, who was actually in our 90-day launch program. We had a lot of 90-day stuff last year that had now been consolidated into the academy. But Vika was one of our students in the past, and she asked, I have a question for this session. How important is family support in career transition? What if our family doesn't agree with the decision that we have? What should we do?
You know, I've heard your question before. If people don't agree, then, and I know it's family, so it's very hard to set boundaries, but it's always good to set some healthy boundaries with the people we love. It's very hard. It's heartbreaking. I'm not saying that you should stop talking to them, but work on your business in silence. And then once, you know, you've got more certainty and clarity and facts that you can give, then share those with your family. Because, you know, it's like Lydia, you said it before as well, our family members are there to protect us because they're afraid that things will go wrong. So it's like you said, it's their insecurities that they're just throwing at you, and it's not to take personally, even though that's a bit weird to wrap our head around. Right. But make sure that you just involve them bit by bit. Yeah. Without it being like a conflict constantly. It's like, oh, you know, this is what I've been working on, or this is what happened, or this is what I'm thinking of. What do you think? Involve them. Tell them, you know, what's happening, but just bit by bit. And you'll see that once that they see your happiness and you growing and your business also, because there's always a financial part that is the scariest. Once they see that there's finances coming in, there's like, oh, actually this does work, and it will trigger curiosity as well. So so then those boundaries are shifted.
Totally. And you're so right. Like sometimes the language of love from our family, especially if they're old school people, like my family are like immigrant parents, you know, they're like, how dare you give up everything we've done for you to do this thing that has so risky. You know, but at the end of the day, again, it's like you have to look at their response based on the life they have. Right?
Yeah.
Based on what they know, based on what they've experienced. Like, of course, my parents feel that way because when they came from Malaysia to Canada, this was the only option for them, you know, so they can't imagine throwing that away in some way, you know, to do something risky because that is not in their vocabulary. And so they're only going to advise on what they know best on. And so that's why it's so important to share your dreams with the right people.
Yeah.
And that may not be your family right away. But you can, as you said, involve them as you get more confident in the steps that you're taking, you know, and Danny just reminded me on the chat box, like, look what Auntie Alice, which is my mom, said this week. It took her 5 years to say it, but she's like, you know, she sat on my couch and she's like, I'm so proud of you that, because, you know, she did think that I was some sort of travel blog agent for the longest time. And she's like, I've seen your work. I watch your webinars. You don't even know I'm there. And she's like, I'm so proud of you because you did the thing that none of us, we have no entrepreneurs in my line of family. So she's like, you did the thing that none of us would ever do. But at the end of the day, she is actually spying on me constantly. She may not say it out loud all the time because she's still worried for me in a lot of ways. But now, you know, she can articulate that now because, again, I'm more enthusiastic about my life. I'm more confident about my business. But if I'm a little bit shaky and I'm telling her in the beginning of time, oh, you do think this is going to work? She'll be like, just go back to work. Let's not stop worrying about these things. You know, so you sort of have to pick the right people to talk to and also know that your family doesn't have to know everything.
Exactly.
Right? They can know bit by bit and also enroll them when you feel more confident in certain steps that you're taking. But also realize, again, what they're saying to you that can sometimes be a bit of a party pooper or like feels like they're raining on your parade of your dreams is actually just a projection of their own fears. It's a story that they need to tell in order for them to be safe in their life. And so, you know, it's the truth for them. It is not personal. Right. And I wanted to I just found an old blog that I wrote from many years ago, which I think could be still quite helpful to a lot of people. But basically is one of the blogs I wrote when I was getting all the naysayers in my life, which were like people that I was friends with, family members, and sort of how to deal with that without taking it personally. And also really look at it as an opportunity for yourself to be much more finding a way to be confident in the decisions you're making, because again, if you're not, you know, if you're not sure about your own, you know, decisions that you've made in your life, you can't expect other people to support you on it either. You know, everything starts from you, and then, right, that's when you sort of ask more support from other people as well. But that's a great question, Vika, and hopefully that answer was clear for you as well. All right. Well, we are getting into the end of our Tribe Talk. Sophia, thank you so very much for spending time with us here. Everyone for participating in today's talk. I love having these conversations because they're real. You know, they are, again, not just stories of my own, but stories of people that are doing this in all different ways. You know, there's no one way to escape the cubicle. There's no one way to find freedom in our lives. And I hope that Sophia's story and her vulnerability and her honesty and openness about her own journey as well has inspired you that, hey, you know, if you're here, you're taking that first step, you are already one step ahead of most people in the world that refuse to even go through that door of curiosity. So I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation, and we will have more of these all the time in our Tribe Talks as a way of sharing some of those deeper conversations of what we have in the Academy, but hopefully we'll be able to see you as well in our next intake in July 1st if you are interested in the Academy. Thank you so very much for joining us. Have a good night, good morning, good afternoon, where you are. We'll be sending the replay when this is available, and we'll be having more of these Tribe Talks in the upcoming month. And Sophia's social handle, sophiadarkoui.com. You'll see Bettina just shared that on the chat box. Say hi to Sophia there. You can learn more about her work with coaching leaders. You work with primarily with women, but you also work with men as well, of course, as you do. But maybe you can give people a quick little snippet of what you do coach on, so if people are interested in inquiring more about your work, they will know if they're a good fit or not.
Yeah, so the work I do with leaders is primarily about understanding that we all have leadership skills and we are all leaders. I don't think a leader is a formal title, or it doesn't hold an official salary. I think that's ridiculous. And some people think because they're a director, they're entitled to be called a leader. I absolutely disagree with that. People who've worked with me in the past, they know that is absolutely something that makes me crawl up the wall. So what I want is for people who are right now, they feel like they're not being heard at work, they're stuck in their job in a certain routine. They you know, when you want to go for that role and again you don't get it because somebody else has friends in the business, because that's how negative we get at times. Or in life, when you don't know the difference between being assertive and people say that you're being aggressive, then that's really what I want to work towards, is creating those habits that make you a better and happier, especially happier person, because you are a good person, but a happier person, working on your daily habits, on who you are and who you want to be and who you can be. So working on your brand image, working on the way with yourself and with others, and also working on creating your goals with your heart-centered why. Why is that goal so important to you? And working on those actions to get you to that goal.
Yeah.
So there's two ways. There's working in one-on-one, and there's also a program that is coming very soon.
Yeah. And I love that you're creating better leaders in the workplace and in business, but also, as you said, everyone has an inner leader, and it's great to tap into, or know actually, and understand what is your leadership quality. Because everyone thinks of leaders as like, you know, the sort of aggressive, assertive people, but actually a lot of introverts and quiet power people make excellent leaders, but they need to recognize that they have leadership qualities, right?
Yeah.
And it's not about you know, jumping over everyone to get somewhere. You know, it's about being a better leader in today's workplace. It's about collaboration. You know, it's about getting your hands dirty with the people you want to lead. And I love that you're doing that in the workplaces as well. So if you're interested to find out about Sophia's work, do get in the chat box there, click on her link, sophiadarkoui.com, and you'll find some free stuff that she offers, as well as the upcoming program she's running, and a challenge I think she'll be coming up soon with soon as well, that's going to help you lead through happiness, which is awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us, and thank you, Sophia, once again. We'll see you guys very soon, and have a good time wherever you are. Bye.
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 Okay. How do I...
No.